yet. It's going, it's
Okay,
going, and we are live now. Yeah,
we're live now.
and I will go live on Instagram as well. Yeah, so I think we are live now. Yeah, hello everyone. Good morning, good evening. I'm Sunil Kumar Das, welcoming you all to the Sunil Show. So on this podcast, we dive into the latest technology, project management, product development, business analysis, starting from the intending technologies. We cover it all. Today, I'm excited to have Kyla with us. So, Kyla is an expert in project management who has turned her love for organizing into a successful freelance business. Since starting her business in 2020, she has managed projects for big companies, created training programs, and she has completed lot of trainings one-on-one. And she has helped entrepreneurs from Silicon Valley to Washington DC. Now today we have Kyla to share something very inspirational story from her experience. So I'm personally much excited. So welcome Kyla, welcome to the show.
Yay, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Sunil. Very excited to see everyone on this Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, or on the replay. Hello.
Okay, I'm equally excited. Okay, so Kyla, before we dive into our technical discussion, why don't we, quickly go ahead and introduce yourself with your audience, a bit about your expertise, your experience, and what made you to start your entrepreneur journey. So from that note, we can go ahead and start. Yeah.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Kayla, and as Sunil mentioned, I have been operating my own business, Kayla McGuire Consulting, for about 4 years now. And I help entrepreneurs and small to medium sized businesses with their operational and project management strategy. So everything from project management trainings to building PMOs to coaching to serving as a fractional leader. I do all of those things and I love it. Before that, I have extensive experience working in tech startup, in project management, and product development as well.
That's great. That's great. So, Kyla, you have moved from working as a full-time project manager to you have started your own venture. Now, how this journey was? What triggered you to start your own business as a freelancer, as a project manager? So, could you highlight on something that?
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. So I
Mhm,
officially started this journey in 2020
mhm.
after I experienced a layoff at a tech startup. We actually had to close the doors because we weren't able to secure another round of funding, and that was right before the pandemic hit in late February 2020 is when we closed. So pandemic hit in March, and I found myself looking for a job at sort of an inopportune time, not only for the world, but also for my life. I was experiencing a lot of transition during that time as well. So, I just started to lean into what I know and love, and that is project management. And I started a YouTube channel, which seemed crazy at the time, but I had a friend that said, you need to get in front of the camera and start sharing about your experience. So I did.
Wow.
I started this YouTube channel and
Mhm.
to my unexpected surprise, people actually started reaching out to me and asking for my advice, asking for mentorship, for coaching, and then asking to hire me to help them with their startup issues, their project management questions. And that was really the introduction for me to my business. And I did that for about a year as I ended up working for another company. And so I was kind of moonlighting as a project manager and consultant for about a year. And then in 2021, I took it full time and I've been doing it ever since.
That's a great journey, because when you are working under full time, you have everything ready, when you work for employees, you have your workspace, you have your, process and tools, everything set up. Now, when you work as a freelancer, you start your venture, you have to start from zero. So you have to deal with the operational thing. You have to take care of the sales part. You have to take the marketing. You have to have the 360-degree of all these skills. Now that's a great one. So to understand this one, let's begin with, as today we'll be discussing everything about project initiation. Now it is one of the very crucial part, and let's say people working with different industries. Let's say if somebody is migrated to IT. Now we all have one thing. Suddenly the technology is booming. the project uniqueness and complexity is there. So with all these given things, how can we easily start a project or smoothly start a project? That's a big question. So here we have to take care of lot of parameters. So what's your thought in this one? How can we easily start a project? Not easily,
Oh,
smoothly.
okay. So this is so important. And it always shocks me in my coaching that I do with one-on-one with project managers, or even when
Mhm.
I'm consulting with businesses. Usually the project failure or the project issues come back to not appropriately, as you said, understanding the parameters of the project, or even understanding the goal of the project or how it's going to help the company. People aren't on the same page. And it comes back to that so often. And it always surprises me that as project managers, we're not following the best practice of creating a project charter. I hear this so often. I'm like, well, what does your project charter say? And people are like, well, we don't have one. Well, do you have any documentation whatsoever that you created at the front end of this project that tells us what exactly we're doing and why, and what the budget is, the timeline, right? Um, and it just never ceases to amaze me that that's not the case. So I would say that is the number one most important thing, is for us to create some sort of a document and get on the same page about what we're doing and why.
That's true. So it is always important to understand why we are starting this project, what impact it will create, who are the different stakeholders going to be impacted from this, and what value end of the day we would like to create. So because every project comes with some sort of background, goal that we need to achieve, and it has something in its mind. Okay, we need to solve this problem, or we need to create this, impact or value. So once we understand this one, it will be easy for us to do the feasibility study whether we are going to start this, yes or no. Because once we start it, there's no way we can stop it. If we stop it, there is definitely a loss, right? So definitely
Yeah,
it is one of the important parameter. Now, along with this one, as you mentioned, we have to follow different methodologies according to the nature of the project.
right.
And similarly, when you are working with people, let's say you are working with cross-functional team, those who are not aware of project management methodology, that's a big problem, right? You as a project manager, what sort of things you can go ahead and do that to make them understand, okay, this is what important, these documents are important to go ahead and start this project. So how can you deal that situation? Could you enlighten on something?
Yeah. So I think many of us know Jeremiah Hammond, who is
Yeah,
also an amazing project manager. He's like my project management BFF. He's been on this show. And one thing I love about what he does and what he teaches is that we need to have a shared language for
right.
how we're managing the project. You talked about methodologies, right? We need to understand what do the words mean that we're using, and does everyone in the project, everyone involved, do they know what that means, right? Different documentations. What are we calling those documents? And what do they mean? And why are they important? We need to make sure that we're all on the same page. Otherwise, it comes back to communication, right? Somebody says something, we have no idea what they're talking about. Maybe we ignore it. Maybe we just do our own thing because we don't understand. Maybe we don't want to ask, like,
Right.
hey, actually, I don't know, what does agile mean? I don't know what that means, or I don't know what XYZ document is. A lot of people won't ask. So we need to make sure at the front end of that project, when we're in initiation, that we're all on the same page about, this is what the language is that we're going to be using, this is the methodology, and this is what that means, and these are the different documents or artifacts that are going to be important in the project, and make sure we all understand.
Right. That's true. Yeah. So that's shared language, or the shared mind is we all have to be on the same page. That's one of the very difficult tasks for a project manager. But yes, once you bring everyone on the same page, it will be a piece of cake. The journey will be, really smooth. That's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah,
So when we start a project, let's say the duration may of 1 year or 2 year, so it's a multi-million-dollar project. Now, the first week, as we take different roles, first 90 days, for first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and 100 days, it's very important, right? We set milestones for us, and
yeah.
that's when you showcase your skills, you create your space in the organization, right? So when we start a project, when we commence this one, how do you see that the first week of the journey of a project manager, how
Mm.
important it is, and what sort of tasks we need to take care during the first week of time?
Okay, so during the first week of the project, it's really important, right? Because we're setting the tone for
Hmm.
how we're going to be managing the project. It's kind of like a first impression. So
Right.
we need to make sure that we're showing up, we know our stuff, we know what the project scope is, we know how to
Hmm.
communicate that out, and that we are setting up expectations in the beginning and explaining how those are going to be enforced going forward. If we don't do that, then people don't take it as seriously. They maybe don't understand, like, if we do miss deadlines, there's no repercussion for it anyway.
Right.
We need to explain why these things are important and how we're each going to help each other stay accountable, hold each other accountable. When are the touch points going to be for maybe each team, the stakeholders? How are we going to communicate? How often are we going to communicate? And then, okay, that's the first week, right? Is we're laying it all out there. And then we need to actually do what we say we're going to do, because as project managers, if we lay that all out there and then we don't follow up and we don't do what we say we're going to do, people will start to fall off. They won't care. I mean, they'll be like, why does it even matter? I mean, I can push this timeline as far as I want because nothing's going to happen. Um,
Right.
and not to say like project managers are there to push and punish people, because that's not at all what it is, but we're there to lead and we're there to guide, and we need to help everyone come together and figure out how this is going to work. So during that first week, it's just critical that we set that tone appropriately.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. It's much important. Whatever you commit, you have to be on that, and people has to be on the same page equally. That's very important. That's great. Now, when we talk about documentation, we initiation phase, we either go for different, let's say, you people are may work in Prince2 methodology, or they go for PMI. However, there's one important document we have, the feasibility document, you say, or business case, or the project charter, you know.
Yeah.
So how important it is, and do you think it really matters? If yes, why? And if not, also why?
Yes, it matters. So going back to, I think it was the first question that we discussed on the show here, um, it often does come back to that in my conversations with project managers who are talking about their projects that have gone off the rails. I say, well, let's go back to that project charter, your feasibility or your business case document, and they don't have it to go back to. That's a problem, right? Because now we're trying to manage a project that doesn't have any parameters. Like we didn't set those parameters up front officially. Maybe it was verbal. Maybe we had verbal conversations with people and we felt like it was going to be okay, and we initiated the project without those documents. But we really need something to fall back on, right? Just like if we have, if I'm working with a client, I want to have a statement of work so that we can always go back to that and say, this is why I'm doing the work for you and how much it's going to cost and what I'm going to deliver. So if we don't have those documents, there's really no, I mean, the project can get kind of crazy. I'm sure you've seen that happen where
Yeah.
it just turns into this wild thing that's completely out of control. And that's what happens so often because we don't have that initial document and because we haven't all come together, signed off on it. There's something about a signature on a document. When you say, I need your signature on this document, people will read it. And if they don't
Right.
agree, they will say, I don't agree with this thing. That's why I love getting signatures for these things internally with the team, because we can always go back and say, well, hey, you signed this, you signed off on it, you agreed to it. Here's what we're doing. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. And even if it's always best, approach, right? You give time. If people are busy, let's try to schedule a meeting where you can just, overly give a overview of the project charter, and then let them give a 1 or 2 days of time so that they can go through, proofread, and understand what exactly in the project charter. And end of the day, the signature matters. That's what
Yes.
abide them to perform the due diligence, whatever R&R has to be, their part. That's a good one. Yeah. Now,
Yes.
as we mentioned, discuss about a conversion session with people during the first week. Now, project initiation phase, we have to have a lot of meetings. And one of the important meeting is the project kickoff meeting that we have to have, you know.
Yeah.
So what's your idea about a perfect kickoff meeting? How do we
Mhm.
approach that as a project manager? What is our to-do thing and do's and don'ts for a perfect project kickoff meeting?
Oh, kickoff is so important. I have a template for my perfect kickoff meeting. But we first of all need to make sure that we need to prepare for the kickoff
Right.
meeting.
Yeah.
So often I see there's no preparation. We're just like, oh, it's the kickoff, and we, come in, shuffle our documents, and nobody really knows what's going to happen. We need to prepare for it, and we need to have an agenda, and we need to run it like an efficient meeting, because this goes back to another one of those points that we discussed before, putting your best foot forward. This is like, a first impression. So to be able to say, this is how meetings are going to be run in this project. I've prepared for it. Here's the agenda. Here's what's expected of everyone. We need to have that. That's like first and foremost. I always like to go over the project charter again, time, cost, quality, scope, just go over all of that. This is the reason why we're doing the project. These are the people that are involved. Depending on how big this thing is and what the scope of it is, I'll go through all of that. These are the deliverables. This is the estimated timeline. And then I like to also be very clear about what is expected of each person in that meeting and next steps. After the kickoff meeting, I'll send the notes for this. This is what we discussed. This is where you can find all of the information. These are the relevant documents. And this is what we decided is expected as next steps from each
Right.
person. Make it really clear, right? I mean, if we're starting out ambiguous, then your project is going to be ambiguous. If we're starting
Correct.
out clear, then it's going to be clear. So it just start out on the right foot.
Right, right. So it's equally important, right? The way you set up the tone and the background of the project kickoff meeting. Once it is done, it's equally important to send the minutes of meeting, segregating the required deliverables, the next course of action, and who is responsible for that.
Yep.
If that's the one, then it will be clearly, articulated, and people will be abide on either to the timeline and the responses. That's a great one, and definitely
Yeah.
this will help to go for a perfect kickoff meeting. You
Yes.
know. So, sometimes I have personally seen this situation because when we work on a project, we get it from a project sponsor, and he or she has the complete authority to say, give a green signal or a red signal to stop it at any point in time. Now, they are the person who has complete authority, and their time, their dedication towards the project is much important. Now, have you ever come across a situation where the project sponsor getting availability of him or her is difficult, and why do you think it's their responsibility to dedicate time, and if they are not doing so, how can you make ensure that they are dedicating time to ensure the project is in progress and they have some availability so that you can discuss the project progress with them?
Yes, I have experienced this, as I'm sure many project managers have as well. This is another key point that comes up in my coaching sessions with project managers is, what do we do with these project sponsors that are difficult to get a hold of? Maybe they are changing their mind now that we've
Mhm.
started the project. What do we do about this? This is getting really complicated. It happens frequently, and it's always really it's curious to me, because typically that project is something that is very near and dear to the sponsor's heart, right? And so we would think that they're going to be available. But often project sponsors are very busy. They're pulled in many different directions. In my case, and in my history, working in tech startup, often the project sponsor is the CEO, and the CEO is out and about, traveling, trying to get more funding, like getting clients, all of these things. So the project maybe isn't top of mind for them. So it can be really difficult. One thing we can do is try to have as much communication as possible at that project initiation point, because that's probably when they're going to be the most available and the most excited about the project. So getting as much clarity and information and sign off and buy-in from them as possible at that point. And then setting up those check-in points, the touch base
Mhm.
points. I usually like to say you're going to get a weekly update from me no matter what. It's going to be in your inbox. That's going to happen. And then if we can meet bi-weekly to discuss key points. And then when we do meet, this is important. When you meet with your project sponsor, you need to make that meeting as easy as possible for them.
Right.
Because if you get into a meeting with a project sponsor and you're like, I don't know. I was thinking maybe we should do this, but I have all these problems and I don't know what to do. They don't want to meet with you. Like you're going to find next time you ask for a meeting, they're going to be busy. They're not there to solve your problems. They're not there to really do anything other than just say, I support this project and here's the budget for it. Approach the meetings with your project sponsor with a plan and with key points. Walk them through it. If you need them to make a decision, make that really clear. Like, hey, here's the issues that we're running into. Here are my proposed solutions. And here's what I recommend. Which way do you want to go? Make it really easy for them, right? So that's one way we can keep them engaged. They will begin to trust you as well if you can do that more. If you just can't get a hold of your project sponsor and it's becoming a problem, there comes a point where we just can't control other people. And all we can do is move forward and do the best that we can. And sometimes it gets to that point where it's like, I don't know. So you go to your manager, you tell your manager, if you have a manager. Sometimes in startup we don't. Sometimes they are your manager, which makes it even more difficult. But escalate it where you can, document what you're doing, and just make sure you're going in the right direction. But at the end of the day, we can't control them. If we can't get a hold of them, we can't get a hold of them.
Yeah, that's very true because personally, I have seen a situation where escalating multiple times even over email, so there was no response. So the only thing I had to do is just create those electronically recorded because
Yeah.
I had to. The only thing is I had to send the emails and loop everyone, all the stakeholders in place, so that whenever I get hold of them, so I will have proofs. Okay, these many times I have reached out to them and there was
Yep.
no so but that's the only due diligence from a project manager. And as you mentioned, when we schedule a meeting, that shows our facilitation skills.
Yes.
So when we act as a facilitator, we need to understand what it takes to perfectly facilitate a meeting, like setting up the agenda, making them understand what their KR&R is, so that way they show interest in them, the meetings and everything. That's really helpful. Yeah.
Yes. It's huge. It's a good point.
Yeah. Okay. Now, when we are talking about sponsor, there's something very important is taking buy-ins from stakeholders from the day one. You know, Either it may be from setting up the project tone, or identifying the best methodology, or finalizing the best methodology for that, which documents we are going to log for the project, anything. So or the scope part as well. So how do you, as a project manager, how do we ensure that all the stakeholders are on the same page from the day one?
hmm Well, project charter again comes in very
Hmm.
handy, right? And getting those signatures on there. But I think
Right.
another key point with stakeholders is we need to make sure we're presenting the project to them, or the outcome of the project, in a way that benefits them.
Right.
Because if they don't see the benefit of it for themselves and they just see themselves as a stakeholder in this project and it is like this annoying thing that they have to do, then they may not be as engaged or as excited about it as if you can present the project in a way that is beneficial to them. So that's always a key thing. Make sure you get the project charter, they sign off on the project charter, make sure they know how the project is beneficial to them. Make sure you have a communication in place for your project, for your stakeholders as well, right? So again, I always do a weekly update. People know they're going to get a weekly update from me regardless, and then have those other touch points. When are your check-ins going to be? And make those also very structured. Like you said, show off your meeting facilitation skills. Meetings with Kayla are going to be short, quick, and to the point, and we're actually going to get things done. I think that is when you can present yourself in that way, people are going to be much more engaged to work with you on projects.
That's true. Yeah. So those, at least under laying those key ingredients out in a very professional way and organized way, that is much important. That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now shifting our gears towards the risk management of it. It's one of the key aspects of project management where we start performing risk analysis from the day one when we
Hmm.
communicate or with the our stakeholders. And this could be from any corner, right? Starting from human resources, your budget, your stakeholders, anything.
Hmm.
So, how do you ensure that you track risk from the day one and you create a plan, systematic approach for yourself from the day one itself? So, what are the key steps to have a risk management plan from the day one in
Yeah.
any sort of project?
My first step is I'll just sort of run an analysis myself, right?
Hmm.
And I'll create my own matrix. Maybe it's I'm doing some sort of a SWOT analysis too, but I'll create my own sort of risk matrix. Next thing I'll do is I'll run that by the team. I want to know their feedback because there's stuff that I'm not going to consider as the project manager that they know about, that they're in the weeds. They're doing the work, right? They know what could happen. So getting that meeting set up where we're collaborating together, and then really doing a deep dive analysis into the different risks. How likely are these things to happen? How do we need to prioritize potential mitigation of these risks? Putting together that plan and staying on top of it, right? Because we know that as we go throughout the project, this goes beyond initiation, new problems and challenges get introduced or things pop up that we wouldn't have expected, or maybe there was a change order and now we're doing some different work and there's new risks. So staying on top of that, and depending on how long your project is going to go, if it's like a year-long project, we need to have check-in points to make sure that we're talking specifically about risks and how we are addressing those and watching out for those. So I think that initial step is brainstorming, coming up with your matrix, prioritizing, planning with the team, and then watching it as it goes forward.
That's true. So all these parameters are important. So we need to take care of one by one each of the things, and we need to ensure all the things are in place so that you create a checklist for you. And also, what I feel is I created for one of my projects long back that for each of the phase, you as a project manager, you have to create a checklist for yourself. Like, okay, today I have a meeting. So what are things I need to do? This is a checklist. So that meeting has to be under your checklist, and what are the sort of documents you are create, how you're gonna approach for the risks. So once you create a checklist for you, it will be really helpful because we store lessons learning, right? It will be a lessons learned that you create for yourself, and certainly process wise, you can follow the same thing for your next project you know
Yeah.
and each of the checklists, if you create a remark, okay, this will help me in this certain way, that way you can take the nuggets and you can apply that in your next project. You save the risk again.
Yes,
That's a great point.
absolutely. Yeah, we love lists. Project managers love lists.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So one important thing about project is timeline as well as scope. So we always try from the day one that this shouldn't be no scope creep, no room for scope unnecessary scope enhancements. So as a project manager, what are some of the basic things that we need to do to avoid scope creep from the day one?
So great question again, project charter. I'm just going to keep going back to that one. Being
Yeah.
really clear about requirements and deliverables and the scope, right? Making sure that we're all on the same page, getting that buy-in. You know what else I like to do when we are discussing this at the beginning of the project is to communicate this in different ways. Some
Mhm.
people hear this verbally. Some people need a visual of it, right? Some people need you to walk through it. So I like to provide all three methods when I'm beginning a project so that there's no reason why any of us wouldn't understand what the scope of this project is. I think you mentioned timeline too, and kind of estimating that out. That's a really important one because often in initiation, we don't have a robust timeline. We have a general timeline. And then once we get into the planning phase of the project, that's when we get into it and really dig in more granularly to estimate tasks at like a daily or hourly basis. But that is an important part of the project that doesn't happen until planning. So in that initiation phase, we add buffers, right? Because we don't know yet exactly how long things are going to take. We don't know. So we have to estimate, but then allow ourselves a little bit of buffer. Otherwise, when we get into planning, we're not gonna we realize that it's going to take twice as long as what we thought it would take. So thinking in that way is very helpful.
Right, yeah. So I was discussing with one of the other guests, and he was into the telecommunication industry. So we were discussing about this particular point, adding the buffer time. So what's your thought as well? While I see IT project management, when we work on the software development projects, adding buffer would help definitely, you know. But when we are working on something public or sector projects or government projects,
Yep.
they're adding this buffer. I'm not sure how it is. So what's your thought, on this one? Like adding buffer is a good one, or it creates some delay in the project?
It's a really good question. And it's one I was actually considering before we got on this call this morning. And I think the answer is exactly what you said. It depends on the type of project that
Projects,
we're
yeah.
working on and maybe what the best practices are for that particular industry. I know in my experience with tech startup, we are always adding buffers because there's just so many unknowns when we're building products
Right.
that are new, right? So it is just a thing that happens in my world. However, if you work in a different industry and that is not best practice, or maybe you're working on projects where you're able to estimate with more accuracy in the initiation phase because these are projects that you have run many times before and you could
Right.
say with confidence I'm within 95% accuracy on my timeline. That's fantastic. So it really just depends. It's going to depend.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So what would be the minimum percentage of buffer that we need to add, or you think it is completely fine if we add in terms of any IT projects that we are talking
I
about?
think 15 to 20% is kind of like a standard.
Ideal
But
one.
I
Okay.
but I've worked with some companies who always add who always add 50%. So I mean, it's that's where I'm saying it just depends. And this is why it's important to know your clients or know your company and who you're working with and that industry. You have to become familiar with that and what's going to make sense because we know project management is like everything.
Hmm.
So we're talking about it very broadly in this session right here, but
Right.
we could
Yeah.
get super specific when we talk about industries or particular niches and things like that.
Right. Yeah. So one of the other things is, you as a project manager, we need to ensure that people or our cross-functional team or the other stakeholders know their job in a better way.
Mhm.
For that, again, we mentioned that in the project charter, definitely, high level. However, once we kick off the project and we move into the initiation phase, we create either RASI metrics or we
Mhm.
schedule calls with this one. So this is one of the other parameters to make sure they know their job, you know. So, how do you ensure that these things are in place and people know their job in a better way? Now you have the documents in place. However, what other things you can take care of so that people know their job in a better way and their interests are aligned towards the project? How could you motivate them?
Yeah, like you said, the document is just one part of it, right? You can create a responsibilities matrix. You could even, there's like a team charter that you could create along with your project charter. You could do that. You can create the documents. And I think that's really important, again, to have something in writing. But there's something to be said about face to face communication with people on your team to make sure that those things are communicated out in a way that they understand. Because again, I could hand you a document And it might mean one thing to you and another thing to me, or another thing to the team members. So we need to have, this is where communication is so important in project management. And we say it's like 80% of project management is communication. We
Right.
need to be going the extra mile. And that's great. Maybe you created a document. That's fantastic. But you need to actually communicate that face to face or over a Zoom call, and make sure that person understands what their responsibilities are, what that means for them on a day-to-day basis, how they're going to be held accountable, when you're going to be meeting to check in with them. It's not just handing someone a document and walking away. It is being
Right.
very engaged with them and letting them know that you're there to support them and help them and answer questions, whatever it is that you can do as the project manager. That's our responsibility.
So again, one thing, do you love meetings?
Do I love meetings? So it's, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked me this, because I'm making a post on LinkedIn tomorrow about
Oh,
meetings. And I'm just so tired of hearing people say that meetings are a waste of time. That's ridiculous. Meetings are how we communicate with people. And communication is how we get things done in project management. So properly run meetings, effective meetings are absolutely critical. I do not like meetings where you walk in and there's no one in charge, there's no one that's facilitating, and we get off on a tangent and we don't actually cover what needs to be covered. Those are meetings that are probably a waste of time. But I think we're all learning so much now about how to communicate and how to hold meetings that I see things moving in a positive direction. A lot of the meetings that I'm attending now are very well run, and I'm excited for the future of meetings, honestly. Do you like meetings?
I love meetings, but again, uh, but I definitely love meetings. But what excites me, there are some meetings where it's structured in a very structured way. When we see the agenda, what to expect, what my role is there, so that excites me and help me prepared before that meeting. So that's very one important thing. And to answer this one, yeah, I love meetings
You
because
love
that's when
meetings.
you,
Yeah.
yeah, because we get to know each other. That's one thing. Given the culture of hybrid working, we less time we are interacting face to face. However, at least we are on the meeting, you get to know each other, you set the tone, you understand, you showcase your priorities. We can do lot of things over the meetings. So personally, I love meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, it's a time to get to know people. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be all structured and agended all the time. We should get to know each other and have a little bit of fun too, because that just makes work more enjoyable. It makes life more
Exactly.
enjoyable.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And we all know we are not physically working, it's all about mental. So the mind is working, and mind is something where we are emotionally connected. When we
Yeah.
feel connected with each other, that's where the dopamine help us to work more and more, and it helps to be productive.
Yes.
And being human beings, we cannot be productive throughout 8 to 9 hours. It is very next to impossible. But we need to ensure as a project manager, okay, whenever we are going to meetings, this should be the 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 or 30 minutes be much productive. It's again the facilitation skills. So my
Yes.
next question is, have you ever seen a meeting, on your calendar, and you feel like, okay, it's boring. I'll skip this or I'll cancel this one. On the other hand, you see a meeting, it excites you and feel like, okay, let me get prepared for this meeting and I'll share some valuable insights. And what is the difference between these two, calendar invites?
Yeah. Actually, nowadays, I would say 90% of my meetings are exciting. But back when I was working in software development, definitely I had those meetings on my calendar where I was like, can I get out of this? Do I have to go to this meeting? It just seems, and sometimes you would just sit there and and you're not even involved in it, but for some reason you are required to be there and it's not beneficial and you don't understand why you're there or what the takeaway is, and it feels like an hour that you wasted sitting there. So definitely that I have had that. And then other meetings too where I think it goes back to what you were saying. Is there that camaraderie? Is there that like communal idea that we're working on something together and that I have a unique role in this project and I can offer something to the project? That's when I get excited about meetings. I think that's important to remember then when we're sending out meeting invitations to consider, is the person on the other side of this meeting invite, are they going to be excited to receive this invitation or not? So when I'm sending out meeting invites, I always try to make sure I'm really clear about why that person is invited and what we're going to be covering in the meeting and what they can offer to us in that meeting. It's actually a rule that I have with the fractional clients that I'm working with and consulting with, is that that's what we do for all of our meetings, because otherwise it's like, do I have to be here? I love that about your meeting invitation that you sent to me with this podcast. You could tell you're a project manager, first of all, because you had everything all nice and neat and laid out in your emails and your messages. I was like, oh, this is going to be good. I was very excited.
Thank you for the observation. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've received this feedback quite a lot from other people as well, because when we highlight things neat and clean, and the key important, highlights or bullet points, so that helps us to skim immediately, because people don't like to read lengthy things, right? They would like to skim, okay, what are the highlights there? So if we're able to highlight the key points that grab the attention, and that's when it'll help people to go ahead and spend some time to read anything. Yeah. So
Yes.
that's again lesson from the sales. When we go for we cold marketing, email marketing, we
Yep.
have to
Yep.
be very precise about our email communication. Yeah. By the way, thanks for the observation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about initiation phase, where it's what I personally believe is that throughout the initiation phase, it's all about communication, meeting with people, getting their buy-in, signatures, and setting timeline for the next phase, and letting them know what is the project vision, mission, or the objective, what impact we are going to create, right? So overall, all of this, it's all about the communication, what I personally believe. So when
Yep.
we go for a project, kickoff meeting with the people, so how do you ensure when we discuss about project objectives, if you encountered any mismatch in terms of their stakeholder interest, so how do you take this one, and how do you ensure you convey the project objective in such a way that people agree to this one, they see the end goal precisely.
Yeah, no, that is such a good question, and again, that goes back to your project charter, having that really clearly written in the project charter. But sometimes still there are mismatches between what different people are wanting to get out of the project. That's where good communication comes in, to start talking about, okay, what do you want to get out of the project and why? What do you want to get out of the project and why? What's maybe a good middle ground that we can meet here? Bringing it all out into light so that we can have a conversation around it, an open conversation. This usually cannot happen at this level over email or like over a chat. It needs to be face to face or together in a Zoom meeting where we're expressing the different things that we want to get out of this project and why do they matter. I mean, take it back to the business case, right? Like how does this actually contribute to what we're trying to do as an organization? Because often the things that people want are maybe not important to the organization as a whole. And that's a hard one to swallow, right? It's like, I mean, you can want things, but they're actually not going to be the best use of resources. So having those conversations are really important.
No, that's true. Yeah. Sometimes people won't be able to understand the bigger picture or the holistic view, because that's where while communicating the project vision or the end goal, what I personally believe is our thought process has to be from system oriented. That's what we say system thinking, you know. And when we think not about only particular one segment, rather we have to think as a holistic view. We need to understand
Mm.
each of every segment, that help us to connect the dots, because the idea flows from one stage to another to next one. So when we understand, that's where system thinking plays a crucial role. It's not about a project manager, rather to everyone. We have to take care of this one. and understand each and everything about the project as a holistic one, not about particular segment, you know.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
that's great. So now, could you think of any kind of funniest thing it happened during the initiation phase to you?
I
Any of your
saw this
projects?
question. I saw this question on your list, and I was like, the funniest thing that's ever happened in a project initiation. And I really just couldn't think of anything that was funny. I don't know. Maybe I've been to a lot of boring project initiations. I have been. I mean, this is not funny, but I've been in initiations where people cry. Like it's just been really dramatic. Those are definitely situations I've been in. Maybe we need to make our initiations a little more fun and funny. Maybe that's what I'm getting. What about you? Have you had a funny experience?
Exactly, not any funny instance, but during the initiation phase, I had to break my head a lot because I was working. I can think of one project where it was a combination of AI as well as Python. So we had to create a model. You know, I was very beginning of my career where I had to meet personally with each of the senior technical guys. Starting from the CTO, it was a startup, so the CTO and everyone, it's very easy to communicate with them. Okay, so I had to break my head a lot. Starting from the UI design, how it will be, and understanding client's perspective and working internally with the team. Yeah, that was not funny, but it was a great moment for me to, during the initiation phase, that I had met with everyone of the organization, starting from the marketing team, to understand, okay, if something like some uh, critical product come to you, how do you take care of the marketing aspect of it? I
Yeah.
met with sales guy. How do you take care of the pre-sales of it to gain the audience for it? I met with the UX UI design to create because it was a multi-user functional role where everyone will have their login with the different things. So that was a good experience for me. It was not funny, but I met with everyone to
Yeah.
make this happen. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No, that sounds like that's a big project with a lot of moving pieces.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we as a project manager, we are sometimes we are mostly we are not the SMEs. We don't understand the technical part of it, but we have to meet people to understand their perspective, and sometimes we have to act like a student, and we need to reach out to people to learn from
Yep.
them. That's when you can able to bridge the communication between the stakeholders as well as the internal part. you know End of the day, we are again the bridge between both the
Hmm.
stakeholders, the
Yeah.
external and internal.
And you're right. We're students. We're also teachers. We're both.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hmm.
Right. Okay, so all right, it's almost done. So let's wrap up our technical discussion on the latest trends, projects, management, and six. So I hope our listeners found this insights much valuable. Now let's switch our gears a bit. That personally I believe understanding a speaker in a better way is much important. So I have few fun and interesting questions lined up for you. So are we good
Oh
to start?
gosh. You have questions for me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Now the first thing I would like to go ahead with, if you'd like to give suggestion to your younger one, right? So what it would be,
To my
the
younger
best
self.
piece of advice. Yeah.
Specific advice. Oh my gosh. I have so much advice that I would give to my younger self. My first piece of advice is to be true to who you are. It is okay to be different. That would be my first piece of advice. If I'm thinking more about like business advice, I would say get a mentor. Actually, get multiple mentors. When you're young and throughout your career, people who are just a few steps ahead of you and doing what you want to be doing, get a mentor. It's so valuable. I really didn't have mentors when I was younger, and I now see how beneficial they could be. So that's a big piece of advice too.
Hmm. And as I mentioned, you have a lot. What else you could think of so that it's certainly helpful to our audience as well.
Another piece of advice.
Yeah.
Another piece of advice is don't be afraid of failing. Is a big one. Failing isn't even in my mind. I don't even consider it failure. I just consider it like a thing that happened one way or the other. So the more you can look at things from that perspective of like life is just happening as we're going through it and we're learning every single day. I try to approach every single day, every single experience as why is this happening for me? Like, what am I learning from this? How could I learn something from this? It's a fantastic mindset. And I'm not talking about toxic positivity. I'm just talking about being open to life and experiences
Exactly.
and lessons. It's wonderful.
Exactly. Yeah. So personally, what I believe is everything is planned, in the
Yeah.
heaven, and just it's in, we are getting instruction from the background, and we are just playing the role that has been assigned to us till the last breath. So whatever comes to us, let's enjoy it. But based upon our age and maturity level, sometimes we scream, we cry, we fight with people. But end of the day, when we come to a certain level, the saturation level, we try to understand. Okay, we have to be open. That's it. Nothing much we can
Yes.
do about
There's
it. Yeah.
nothing else. Yeah, because there's so little that we can control in life. But I was actually just having this conversation with my daughter last night. She's 9. I said the one thing that you can control is so powerful, and that's your mind. Like your mind
Right.
is so incredibly powerful, and you are the person that's in charge of that. And she was like,
Right.
"Whoa!" So it's just a good reminder for all of us.
But no, it is really such an insightful thought that, and from this age if she's getting trained from this level, certainly it will help her to become a very good person in life. That's very
Yeah,
very important. It is regardless of our job, our financial stability, the position we are in, but become a good person is important, and with a solid mindset. And yeah, that's a great
yeah,
one, such a
yeah.
valuable insight. Now, moving into the other one, what's one of the most adventurous thing that you have done so far, and would you do it again?
Oh, more the most adventurous thing that I've done. Okay, so I'm not like a physically adventurous person where I'm not going to probably not going to jump out of an airplane or anything, like go skydiving. However, I do adventurous things in my life with like choices that I make. So, I have had a season where I invested in rental property and I was actually running a bed and breakfast and cooking food for people every day. That was kind of a fun chapter or season in my life. I've had another season where I actually had a farm and I had goats and I milked them and I had a garden and I sold things at the farmer's market. So that was another season. And now I'm in this season where I'm running my business, my consulting and project management business. That's adventurous, right? In its own way. We're
Yes,
kind of like jumping off and doing this thing that you don't know which way it's going to go. So I always wanted to live a life that wasn't boring. That was the thing. I was like, I don't ever want to
that
live a
that's
boring
that's
life. Yeah.
that's really exciting. Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how do you manage time between all those things?
Well, I
So it is
don't do
something.
all of those things now. I don't do all of
Okay,
those things now. Um, I I've actually very much simplified my life at this point. I live in a really small place, which I love, in a neighborhood that I love, and I just have like systems for my life. I have systems for my life. I wake up early. We were talking about this before the call. I was telling Sunil that I wake up really early. I go to bed really early. I try to do things, for my health that make sure I have enough energy, like eating well and working out and all of these things just to, like be as optimized as possible. I'm not doing like 5 a.m. cold showers or whatever it is that people are doing, but I do try to set up my life in a way to where it's just like simple to get the things done that I need to get done.
that's really sounds amazing, because when you think about any task that you are going to do, and definitely it'll allow you, or it'll help you to uh, give your 100 percentage.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. And always I read these quotes and listen to podcasts. But one thing is, uh, let's say you go to your bed with that thought that in the next morning, what do you like to do? That will help you to be productive, and very kind of dedicated, and it's a good one. Now, as you mentioned, you made your life very simplified, you know. So could you highlight on something? Because this is very a great concept in a personal
Mhm,
life to become very simplified.
mhm,
Now, what does it mean when we
mhm.
say I'm very simple? Simple in the sense within or from outside?
So I'm
Which is
simple,
important?
like my possessions are way downsized. I mean, my I live with my daughter in our house. It's like 800 square feet, which is small for a lot of people, but I think it's perfect size. So possessions, we can't have a lot of possessions because we just don't have room to put them anywhere, which is
Right.
fantastic, right? So that's another way. But I'm also simple with my mindset. I was telling you this morning. The first thing I do every morning is I sit on my deck and I look at my trees and I watch the squirrels and I just say, how amazing is that there are leaves on the tree and like air in the sky and I'm just here. I think it's important to bring it down to that, right? Because that's really what it is. And so often we go throughout our day and we get stressed and things become complicated and there's like all these things. So I like to bring it back to my deck where I'm just sitting there looking at the trees. It's really not that complicated.
Right, right, and a person, I believe, when you do that, you become a part of their family, and that atmosphere, it accepts you, and really, you have a brilliant communication with the environment.
Yeah.
It's not verbal, but the way you communicate, the way you feel, it gives you immense pleasure. The
Yes.
mind, it opens up your mind, happiness. That's a good one. Yeah, good to know.
Yeah. Yeah, just being grateful to literally be sitting here. I mean, that's how I feel on a day-to-day basis.
That's fantastic one. Yeah.
Mhm.
So now moving to another one. What is one of the fun or interesting facts about you that most people wouldn't know?
Mm, I never know how to answer this question. I fe I don't know if there's something, like, super fun or interesting about me. Is that bad? I'm just a normal person. I don't really have, like, an interesting hobby. I love writing, but that's not very interesting. I love going for walks, but that's not very interesting. So I don't know, Sunil. Maybe I need to, rethink that one.
Okay, that's no problem. As you mentioned, you write. So you love to write,
I do.
kind of what exactly? It's poem, or you
Oh my
write novels,
gosh.
or
Everything. So one of my dreams in life, which I know is a lot of people's dream, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book.
even
Um,
mine. Yeah,
yeah, and so I have a lot of ideas for this. I have a very imaginative mind, but I'm trying to figure out how to put all of my writings together into this work that I want to offer the world. And it will happen one day, but that's one thing that I'm working on.
that's amazing. That's again an interesting one, and I wish all the best, on this journey.
Thank you.
So now another one, if you could wish to switch your career for a day, so what profession would you try and why?
If I could restart it, like do a different one?
And it's not like different one. If you would like to switch your career for a day, just for a day,
Oh, just for a
what
day.
it is. Yeah. So what profession would it be and why?
That's such a good question. I don't know if I've ever been asked that question before. Um, Maybe I would do something like, you know what my daughter would want me to say? She's like, "You should be Taylor Swift for a day."
Oh, okay.
I mean, wouldn't that be interesting? I don't think I would like that at all, but that would be interesting. It would kind of be fun to be a famous person for a day just to see it and then go back to my life and hide. So that could be interesting. I think I might, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to go all in. That's my answer. I'm going to go all in and I'm going to be somebody famous for a day.
That's great. That's great
Yeah.
one. Yeah. Now, if you had to describe yourself with a movie title, which movie would it be and why?
Okay, so uh, like the movie that I most resonate with is the movie Chocolat, but
Hmm.
that's the title doesn't really tell you what that is. So, I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that like my movie is the movie Chocolat, and that is the movie like I just see myself in that movie. That's who I am.
Oh, that's a great choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know this movie?
No, but
Okay,
I'll be
well,
checking this one.
yeah, now you gotta check it out.
Yeah. So, if you could have any superpower, what it would be and how would you use it?
um, so I want to say like seeing into the future, but then I also kind of don't want to say that because I like being surprised by it. So, and I definitely don't want to say flying because I'm afraid of heights. So that just seems like the wrong thing to say. Being invisible actually sounds fun for me. I think that would be kind of cool to be invisible.
Yeah, that would be incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, let's say as you are into you have your own venture and might be you're working long hours throughout the day, so how would you kind of wrap up your day after a long working hours?
So my day is usually wrapped because my daughter has something that I need to take her to. She's at an age where I'm, like always driving her places, and it's a good way to wrap up the day to have dinner with her or to take her somewhere. Or sometimes she'll say to me, "Mom, it's time to be done. Let's play Uno." Which is also good. I'm glad I have her because otherwise I'd probably be working until, midnight.
Yeah, that's a good one
Yeah.
actually. Yeah, it's a kind of gentle reminder that we have
Yeah.
both personal and professional life.
Yes.
That's how you get cut off your professional life. You spend quality time with your daughter, and you take care of your household and everything. That's a great one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's time to wrap up the show now. But before we wrap up, uh, what are the three tips that you would like to give to our audience?
Oh my
Both
gosh.
personally and professionally. Anything.
Yeah. Tip number 1, create your project charter. Like you just need to do that at initiation. Tip number 2, don't be too hard on yourself. This is all such small stuff in the grand scheme of things. And tip number 3, take care of yourself. There's no excuse, no reason why. Take care of yourself. Those are my tips.
No, those are brilliant. Yeah. Thank you
Mhm.
for sharing this wonderful insight. So it's always great to know our speaker in a better way. That's what I believe personally. And to our audience. So I hope everyone you enjoyed this segment as much I did. So stay tuned for more engaging conversation on the Sunil Show. And if you haven't subscribed our channel on YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe because every week I come up with a lot of new things. And I would like to see you as a part of my family member, the Sunil Show. So thanks, Kala, for your time as well. It was really fantastic discussion with you throughout, yeah, both, our technical discussion as well as understanding our speaker in a better way. So we did a great job. Yeah,
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. Have a wonderful Sunday evening, and I will see you soon.
sure. Yeah, talk to you later again. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone. Thanks for your time. Bye bye now.
Bye.